Hello, welcome. I'm Theo Flove. I wonder why we suffer. And I also wonder what are the benefits of why we suffer. We're going to talk about this. And this is, by the way, the day 28th of the Adventüre of Appreciation calendar. Imagine, what if you knew the reason for why you suffer? If you suffer at all, you may not suffer, but you may know people who suffer. Maybe you're beyond suffering. Maybe you experience pain from time to time, but you don't dwell on it and you never suffer and you kind of transform it and you feel better most of the time. And increasingly feeling well-being and becoming resilient and responsible and having a long-lasting epic journey of just overcoming and feeling great. Maybe that's you. I hope you are you. I hope that is you. If not, that is the version of you that I would like to illuminate more of and bridge from where you are. But let's honestly ask this question, because suffering is a huge, huge part of society. And it's something that all of us have experienced in life, most likely. I've never met a person who haven't experienced suffering. I have experienced suffering in many ways, on many levels. Physical, relational, emotional, social, spiritual, all of the above. Economical. So we have suffering rearing its ugly head in all the aspects of life. Now, I'd like for you to think about this, if you may, and that is, what are the reasons for the suffering we experience? Now, there are two ways of looking at life, and many, many more, but these are kind of very close to the one reason for suffering. And these two perspectives, if you are one of them, your answer will sound something like, well, the reason we suffer is because outside forces and influences negatively impact me or our lives. It's something outside there that keeps enabling me to suffer, and that causes even my suffering. And you know, many times you may look at things and say, that is actually what happened in that scenario. Yeah, that was a outside influence participating in creating suffering for an individual. That is not something that doesn't happen, but it's a very disempowered viewpoint that never gets beyond suffering. So that is one viewpoint, the victimhood viewpoint. I have actually a friend who I noticed having that type of mentality. And he would ask very poor questions. And I say this with as little judgment as I can. The only judgment you'll hear in this is the judgment that, wait a minute, do you want to keep suffer, or do you want to experience maybe pain at times, but overcome it, and have lasting empowerment in yourself and the ability to overcome those things easily and effortlessly, and pretty soon feeling pretty good most of the time. That is what I measure everything up against. So it may sound like judgment, but it's really making a discernment about what will serve you the most, because my mind is strictly focused on that version of not only you, this is as much me and everybody. So, having clarified that, my dear friend would say things like, why me? Why me? And he was in a feeling of being a victim. He did not feel empowered, And it's something we may laugh about, the people who know that we have the power to overcome emotional turmoil. But when you're in it, and for those who have experienced it without knowing their own power, it is suffering. So he would say, why me? Why does this happen to me? How bad is this? The questions, everything he asked and focused on would just dig deeper into the negative aspect of the topic. So if you have a topic, let's take a personal one. I've gone through cancer, and I must say that is a suffering journey. I still had victim mentality to clear up, very subtle ones, but still there were some victim mentality, and there was suffering physically, obviously, but also mentally and relationally, which dived into the emotions. So there was some suffering in that journey. So when we experience a physical condition that is displeasing to us, it causes pain from time to time, but how we relate to it has so much to say. And let's take another example to expand this, because it's not really relatable to everyone to have a lasting physical suffering experience. And really, to be honest, there was very little suffering on my journey compared to what it usually would be. I had that condition for like 4 or 5 years, and I mean, if you knew me then, you would know that there was a surprising amount of joy and well-being most of that time, except at the later time before I began to treat it with heavy drugs and such things like chemotherapy. But let's take another example as well. What do people suffer about? Anything, really. People suffer a lot when they don't share what they need to share with a certain individual. Someone close to you may need a message that you have not found a way to express. So you ruminate over that thought of not, you ruminate over what you want to say to them, but you have not yet summoned the courage to actually approach that individual and share the message in a way that hopefully reaches them. That is a way of suffering, to keep spending time in suffering, because it could be solved easily just by doing the right action. And the right action is so invisible when we are focused on things that cause us to suffer. This is why there is a process between suffering and the right inspired action, because we don't really want to push ourselves into action if we can feel inspiration moving us into action. Sometimes we just do things and we follow actions because we want to avoid pain or we need things to be done, but really inspired action is the ideal. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, victimhood suffering, and then we have the other type of suffering, which I recently saw in a dear friend of mine. I see this in others because I have been it myself. I've experienced it myself, being it. So, this is the way we learn. That is a benefit, by the way, of suffering. We begin to learn a lot about ourselves and how our focus creates our experience. Back to this individual though, she would have a lot of resistance. This is the other way that suffering is continued, is having any type of resistance really towards resolving something. And it's the resistance that I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. No, I don't want more of this, I don't think it's fair, I think it's bad, I don't like it, blah, blah. It's focusing on the pain and not transforming one's relationship to the pain. That is the other way, where it's with a situation of talking to a family member about something you need to say, that you feel innately in your entire system that I really, this is going to be said at some point. If you practice the resistance towards that, like, I don't like that, oh, I don't want that, that would be bad because of this, and this, if you begin to use your beautiful creative ability to perceive, your creative perception, because all perception, or everywhere you put your focus, has a hint of creativity. It will gather more information about the topic you focus upon. So if you focus upon why something happens to me. Why am I the victim? You will get more information about why you are a victim. This is why people say that perception is reality. How you see it is the main key factor in how you relate to it and how you act upon it and how you feel about it, how you socialize with it. It determines everything. How we perceive it is the main ingredient. The beauty of that is that you have more power than any other conscious point of being in the universe to focus that perceptive gift. And this is really what this video is about, is to get you back into the knowledge of that gift, because we all have it. We all put our focus on different things. We all put our eye of perception upon a vast variety of topics, usually during a day. I'm still evolving into becoming like the most successful people out there, the most happy, joyful, loving people, kind, philanthropic people, the people who do what we say are great things. I think we all have something in us that wants to rise to a higher level compared to where we have been. And I know that to do such a thing, I can't have that many topics that I focus upon every day. It becomes more and more and more and more singular. It is as if you're holding a looking glass towards the sun, and you focus that sun energy, which is your eye, you focus that energy upon what you want to start a fire upon. If you want to create a fire, you have to hold the focus until the fire starts and is self-sufficient. This is an example by a mentor of mine, Kevin Trudeau, or as his name is now, Guru Kev. He's an amazing, lovely individual. I make a video about him. And he gives this example about how our focus is like having a looking glass, and wherever you put your focus, you can create fire. You can create something that is self-sustained and that lasts and creates the result. But if you move the focus all the time, if you have several leaves in front of you and you move your looking glass everywhere, you will not start one single fire. You will not have any creative manifestation. You will experience a lot, but there is a stress moment in there. This is another topic that I intended to talk about, simply because I have not mastered my mind in such an extent that I can hold a super singular pure focus. On the other hand, though, there are benefits in everything, and this is a perspective that is relevant to this topic of suffering and asking the right questions. Which brings me to how do we get out of suffering? That's something I've thought about a lot. I see suffering in the world. I see people suffering endless ways. Through my very birth, really, from the beginning of my life, I remember this as being a topic. I've always been like a diplomat, trying to bridge frustrations between people and create harmony and peace. And on that process, I've been observing a lot, I've been seeing a lot, and I can very easily detect when people do not feel really good in the moment. And that has been a gift, as well as, it could have been a curse, because it's not fun to see the world suffer. Some people off themselves. They leave the planet just by seeing how it looks out there in the world. But that is okay. It is one way. I don't want to judge it. I want to allow people's paths. But man, when you know that you can feel amazingly good regardless, that makes everything such a beautiful, hopeful, it makes everything beautiful. It makes the world a really hopeful, not only hopeful, you have knowingness. You know that you are the alchemist. You can transform any type, any package of information, even if it's suffering that is presented. For me, it seems like when I walk out in the world, when I turn on some news outlet, when I listen to some lovely family member or anyone who does not feel good in that moment, it's as if they're presenting a dish. Hello, Here, I offer you, and what do they offer? Well, many of my friends offer, hey, I offer you my joy. Hey, I offer you my appreciation. Hey, I offer you this thing that I love to speak about and illuminate. You know, beautiful, magnificent, majestic thoughts that feel amazingly good as they speak them as well, because they have become very adept at meditating within the joyful aspects of not only life, but also they have been able to walk through the shadows and distill forth a beautiful essence that is flavored with some goodness, usually a foundation of love, understanding, or at lower levels, tolerance up to acceptance, and then understanding and love and wisdom and enlightenment. So these are beautiful conversations that I wish that we all will have more of. That is my purpose here. I want to make it so freaking easy for people to experience life as a beautiful box of gifts where you are invited to be the full expression of you, so you can actually give the full expression of you to the world and feel accepted and feel that, you know, I am allowed to be me. And I love being me, and I love knowing that I have something to give wherever I go. You know, that's something I burn for. You know, I love to see more of that in the world. At other times, though, to be quite honest, probably 80% of the people who reaches out to me are in some state of suffering. They have not created a focus that they enjoy before they present their topic to me, which is okay, because this is the work. This is why I'm here. I'm just going to take payment for that in the future, because it doesn't make sense. I have great people who know how to master their mind and know how emotions are influenced by the focus we have. You know, it's just a pleasant life to live. But there are people who suffer, and they come up with a dish, and instead of, hey, I offer joy, it is like, hey. And, you know, the worst kind are those who are like, hey, eat my shit. Pardon the word, but it makes the point, you know. That is not pleasant. It's not a proper way to offer it, and it usually doesn't reach me. But we have other people who know what's happening, and they are overcoming things, and they're like, hey, this is what I am experiencing right now. On my plate, I have suffering. I have a relationship that is not up to speed. It is actually broken. Or well, this is also a relationship, you know, but it's regarding love that doesn't work. Or well, I'm worried about economic things. You know, there are all different types of topics. Or I feel spiritually drained. I feel like there are energy vampires, you know, ruling my life. All types of situations where the plate contains something that they do not want to eat. But as they're talking about it, they don't realize this usually. I think it sounds a little bit arrogant of me to talk about it in this way. But if I am talking about it and saying that this is arrogant, I'm beginning to feed arrogancy. And I'm beginning to actually simulate it. And assimilate and simulate. And then it's more of a reality. So why would I feed that to myself? This is relating to what I just said. They are actually eating it as they are describing it. They have not yet understood that the way they describe the dish is the way they eat it. Now, we have all done this. Haven't you ever had a situation where you just can't seem to move your focus away from how bad it is? I mean, we all can relate. It's not uncommon. And we probably will have some of those experiences on our track forward. But can we get better? Can we do we want? If it's possible to feel better, if it is, and it is, why not? Why not feel better? You know, are we committed to becoming more proficient, more experts on the topic of feeling better in life, to digest darkness in a way that leaves everything better, even more beautiful? And it's not that it's like better and worse. It's like it's horrible, you should not suffer. That is not the point here at all. The point is that there are ways to move through the suffering and find a way to see it, a way to perceive it, a way to sense it, a way to feel it, a way to hear it, a way to smell it even, or taste it, where you channel forth the most pleasurable parts of that topic. Now, on the other hand, you have people calling this who may be triggered and say this is spiritual bypassing. This is ghosting the reality. You know, this is being delusional. Some people may say that. Still, what they are really saying is that I have resistance to that. I don't like that because I have a way to judge that makes me feel bad about what you're talking about. I have a label called this, spiritual bypassing, being delusional, being arrogant. And this label I want to put on things because I have nothing else to put on this topic. This is how people live life. This is how we all do live life, because we do have these labels. We give a diagnosis upon the world every day. We put labels upon it. Some call it icons, you know. So the work is really becoming aware of the icons you have, or I would call it more, you know, a label is a really good way of seeing it. So there are symbols all around us and we put labels upon them, and most of the labels we use are taught to us while we have been unconscious. So it is people who complain, worry and suffer, who say things in movies, reality, media. And those things go into our mind without we being conscious. Now the point is we should probably be very conscious about this. And you will become if you do the following. And you may already be. I feel a little strict in this video. This is funny though, because I relate to now very many thought forms of criticism, of discomfort, of suffering. These are the symbols I'm activating in my life. So here is my work to exemplify it. I will change the way I look at suffering and the way I speak about suffering from henceforth. I don't like people. I love people, but I don't like seeing them suffer. So I was about to say I don't like suffering. I don't like people who suffer. But I don't like suffering and seeing people who suffer. I would be okay with them experiencing pain and then overcoming it, but I'm not pleased with seeing suffering. So here is a symbol that is called suffering that I can heal, because my relationship to it is really it's lacking in a way, because I still don't feel really good about it. So what is suffering? You know, another way of looking at suffering is to say it's passion. There is a purpose that is so strong that pulls an individual so beautifully that whenever they put their focus on something that does not feed that purpose, they suffer, you know? So it is passion. Suffering in that way is really passion. Because suffering is really pointing towards that they are not looking at what is feeding their soul, you know, or maybe maybe the suffering even is feeding their soul, because there are certain benefits. Every time we have suffered, and we have overcome it. Now we have overcome it. Whenever the same type of suffering occurs, the same symbol presents itself, it is transformed. The way we relate to it, I am transformed. So my relationship to it is transformed just because I have transformed my relationship to it. I've changed how I relate to it. So every time it occurs, I am now no longer suffering. I am now a resource for the people around. Don't you want to be a resource for people around you? Don't you just want to be an example of how to overcome and feel good, really, about most of reality? I do. I really do. So when a symbol comes into my life, like suffering, now I will see a little bit more, just because I put my focus upon what's behind. Let me understand it. Why is it a good thing? These are the right questions, instead of why me? Why is this happening to me? How can it get any worse than this? What is wrong with them? These questions are leading us down the track. Now, if we ask questions like, why is this potentially better than I thought? What is really happening here? You see, it's not really the words, it's the energy behind that wants to reveal something, a new way of relating to it. So suffering, I'm now like, well, the word suffering is not a word I usually use, because it is loaded. I don't like it. Why would I use my ability to act consciously? Why would I use my ability to speak consciously to use the word suffering throughout the day? This is a video about suffering, so I'm diving deep into something that is kind of dark. People call this shadow work. And it is shadow work. It's looking at things that we usually tend to run away from. But if you run away from it, we will never be able to address it and change our relationship to it, because our current relationship would be running away. And if you don't want to run away anymore, if you don't want to feel in fear, fight or flight, you actually have to find a new way of responding to it. And I now have to respond differently. So if the word pops up, because I'm not going to practice the word suffering every day, I don't feel any need to talk about this with myself. But when it occurs, when someone says I'm suffering in the future, that will trigger within me a reminder of passion. Oh yeah, I linked suffering to passion. If you've heard about how the brain works, what fires together, wires together. Which means that if you have suffering here and then you link it up to passion, and every time suffering is thought, you are like putting in the thought of passion, now those words are wired together. They fired together and now they're wired together, which means it's an automatic. It's not something you consciously do. It happens automatically with a little bit of practice. And it's something we want to practice because it makes us feel tremendously good about the worst things of reality. And it's based on your own truth. You see, it's not bypassing it. Because if I was bypassing suffering, I would just run away from it. I would just say, I don't want to even talk about the topic. I don't want to relate to it. I don't want to feel about it. I don't want to even acknowledge its existence. But instead, we actually do the tough lifting. And it's not tough. It's kind of tough. In Norwegian, we have the word tough, which means the same as tough. And tough can also mean like you're cool, you're awesome, you're tough. So being tough can also mean actually being tough, resilient. Right now, my camera has no more storage data. So I'm going to end this video, which is perfect. I'm going to eat now. But let me give you just a summary here, and I will systematize this in the future in as few words as possible. It's going to be epic. Look forward to that. Anyway, here is the basic suggestion. We have an emotional guidance system. Every time we feel less good, every time we feel less good than where we are, when we feel bad, this system says you feel bad. So you will notice, I recommend that you try the best you can to actually become conscious. Use that, link that symbol of negative emotion, suffering, as a trigger to become aware. You step in consciously. And when you're conscious, you can actually observe what is happening. You're like, oh, I'm feeling bad. Huh. Why am I feeling bad? Let's see, what is it? Why am I suffering right now? And you see, this is a question that could give you more information about suffering, but sometimes we need to get a little bit more information so we can actually key it in and, frame it. So like, okay, why do I feel bad? Oh, here we go. The person just said something to me and it was an insult, I interpreted it as an insult. So, oh, that's why I feel bad now. Interesting. And what did they say? Oh, they said you really should change your type of deodorant. Maybe that was what they said. And wow, okay, so that made me feel bad. Well, how can I feel better? Now this happens after we become conscious of the system, the emotional guidance system, saying, alert, alert, you are suffering, you feel bad, there's some pain, it's gonna stay on until you address it. Running away from it, the alarm is still going on. So address the alarm and say, oh, hello, emotional alarm, you're telling me I'm feeling bad. Well, thank you, first and foremost, I appreciate that you tell me. Now, what is the focus I just had? What did I think about that made me feel this way? Oh, I felt judged. Interesting. The thing that was said, the symbol that was activated, was that I should change something about the way I dress or whatever. Okay. Well, maybe I misunderstood them. Okay, maybe they meant exactly what they meant. Well, maybe I interpreted it in a less good way than I could. How can I see this in a better way? You see where every question leads? It is an upward spiral. It's okay, I can see what is here. Now let's see where this goes if I'm going to better it, if I'm going to put my heavenly gaze of observation upon this and pull it up to source, beautiful God energy. This is just ways of explaining it, but there are great symbols for some. You're literally coming from the best version of you, your source energy, your creative, awakened soul that knows that it can dance with reality and make it beautiful and as beautiful as you want. It's all determined on your perception anyway. So you take the topic and you're like, well, actually, maybe the reason they said that is because they themselves are unsure about how they dress. Or maybe what they're saying is actually a gift. Maybe this can inspire me to formulate a new way of dressing myself. Maybe this is a way to expand and learn and be creative, But if I'm going to do that, this is just me talking, if I'm going to do that, I must first make sure that I loved the past version of me, because I don't like to leave any trails in the past that are not blessed with love, because I loved myself there. I were okay. I was as good as I could be up to this point. If I'm going to be better, I will love what I was so I can free myself from it again, genuinely say the things that I loved about who I was, but now I'm going to become something else because I'm changing my perception. And this time I expand in, whatever direction you want. But this is how it is to be consciously present in your body, knowing when you feel bad so you can address it and change your relationship to the symbol that triggered that suffering. Oh, listen to that sentence again because it's so freaking clear. If you'd like, you've probably gotten this already. This is enough for now. I wish you well. I wish you love. I wish you awaken to your creative power. It's all in your response to it. Good luck. Have fun, and tell me, what symbol are you going to change? If you'd like, write a comment and say, this is the symbol I'm going to change. The symbol of blah, 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 Yeah, it could be a symbol like when people judge me, or a symbol like the music I don't like, or the symbol of, well, I don't like sushi. So I'm going to look at it in a way that I don't feel that bad when I think about it, Tell us about one thing that you may want to change if you watch this whole video. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine. It's okay. In every case, I wish you the best. Have a wonderful day.